Medicine Lady, and I wanted to make a short video for everybody, just giving a very concise overview of this new moon. Pardon me one second, I need to get one little technology thing situated. Give me one second. So yes, this is just going to be an extremely concise overview of this new moon energy. All right, I'm situated now. So I'm going to start out actually by reading a very brief overview that I wrote of the new moon in Cancer. I've done a lot of kind of personal reflecting as well as studying other astrologers and just really tuning into what the energies are that are going on right now. And so one of the things that I try to do is to be a bridge between people that make much longer kind of videos and analysis of astrological events. And I try to, kind of simplify some of the astrological terms that can be confusing when you're first learning astrology. So I spent some time kind of consolidating my thoughts into a very concise, brief blog post that I'm going to read to you all, and hope that it's kind of a good foundation for understanding the energies of this new moon partial eclipse. All right. The universe is easing us into eclipse season. Gratitude. Today's new moon is really barely eclipse season energy. However, the crescendo has begun. And I think it's a good thing that we get a gradual build-up on this one. Side note, many of you may have started to notice that eclipse season often brings with it intense either life or world events. Like last year, eclipse season was the buildup of the hurricanes that happened at the beginning of, or kind of the middle of hurricane season last year. So it's really nice this year that there's like a very, very barely, partial eclipse that we get to start off the season with, because I feel like it's helping us energetically prepare without having to experience like the intensity of eclipse season right from the beginning. We just survived emotional spiritual boot camp. It's been about 6 weeks since I spoke or wrote on social media. I've really given myself this time to reflect and process the things that I was feeling and experiencing. And it has been so much to process for so many of us. It felt like the planets were squeezing us to see if we could do alchemy on the hardship. That time was literally like a training ground, aka boot camp, for what we were about to emerge into in eclipse season. Our test to see if we can truly surrender to divine will and surrender our need for control. In particular, the 6 weeks leading up to eclipse season was marked by many unexpected changes. Lots of challenging energy between Mercury, mind movement, and Saturn, authority time, and Uranus, unexpected change and chaos. When things were not going our way, many of us realized that we needed to work in new ways with our old patterns of responding emotionally and sometimes irrationally to life situations. In the end, we persevered because we knew that regardless of what came to pass, we had to keep our vibration high and our mindset, perspective, and energy positive. And we have overall. Despite the highs and the lows, we are still here determined to keep our heads high. Pluto and the moon. So, now, eclipse season is officially beginning, and with this new moon in Cancer, we get to swim in the energy of the powerful currents of the moon Cancer and Pluto Scorpio energies. Two different versions of water energies that combine in a very powerful way. Pluto is the planet that rules transformation, sexual connection, wealth, power, and all of the high and low vibrations associated with those things, such as spiritual wisdom, passionate sex, shared resources, manipulation, etc. One moment. In astrology, Pluto rules the 8th house and is symbolic of the place in the human psyche that most humans run from their entire lives, the shadow, our deepest, darkest fears. That is why Pluto, like the vulture that it so reminds me of, is about death and rebirth. because in facing our fears and our deepest pain, we transform them and are reborn, just like the phoenix. Cancer is the sign that is ruled by the moon, and as such represents the mother, mothering, the midwife, Yemaya, in the ocean, saltwater in general. In astrology, the moon rules the fourth house, which represents the home. Astrologically, it represents that vulnerable place within, the inner child, the past lives, the ancestors, and especially the intensely sensitive and emotional part of us that remains wounded. The wounding causing an extreme sensitivity in that one place in our psyche. In this new moon sky, the sun and the moon are exactly next to one another, also known as conjunct, and the sign of Cancer, opposing Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, manifesting a powerful creative tension between the energy of the moon Cancer and Pluto Scorpio. Pluto wants to help us transform the way that we respond to our emotions. Transformation of our old emotional patterns. Yes, Pluto, on behalf of Spirit, is making one massive request of us. We must transform the way we relate to our fear-based emotions. We must now activate and actually walk the path of seeing and being with, and finally transforming our fear-based emotions without acting them out and acting on them in old unconscious ways. Why Spirit wants to help us with this. Our emotional reactions distract us from the work that we must get done to manifest our dreams. These fear-based vibrations simply attract vibrations just like them back into our lives. There are such strong energetic patterns, portals, and vortexes going on right now that we are very intentional about what emotional and energetic vibration we are creating in our energy fields. Our fear-based emotional reactions take away from the direction that we actually want to go, and reinforce old neurotransmitters and energetic patterns that we are working on rewiring into love-based emotions. In the last month or so, I have gone into a vortex, like an inner cave. Inside the cave, I don't talk a lot, and I spend a lot of time by myself. I think it's the first time I've ever allowed myself this peace and quiet and stillness. Inside the stillness, I notice that one thing is becoming clear to me during this heightened time of honoring and being with our deepest, most vulnerable emotions. Our deepest, most vulnerable places are usually old wounds, and as old wounds, they are like energy centers that hold old stories. These old stories, though they hold old emotional currents that feel so true, powerful, and sensitive, they are really just that. Stories that our young psyches invented to explain situations that were larger than us. At the same time, from the perspective of the soul, these old wounds and stories often have their source in past life trauma that we have recreated on the level of the soul in this lifetime in order to heal. Sometimes we have to get quiet to let the dust settle, so that we can distill out the new story that wants to have space to emerge, once the old story has been quieted enough that there is actually space for something new. The definition of eclipse season. We're just about done. Eclipses can be known for taking something away from us that we may have been holding on to very tightly, something that no longer serves us. Perhaps you want to reflect on what you may be holding on to that does not serve you. One lesson I have gleaned over time from working with the planets is that the process of transformation is much more graceful and full of ease and support when we work with rather than against the process of transformation. Ultimately, I sense that this new moon in Cancer is all about making a new commitment to be at home, to feel at home, to insist on feeling at home here on the belly of Mother Earth, trusting ourselves, our flow, our intuitive knowing, reclaiming the lost, reclaiming the rightful place of the woman, the mother, the divine feminine principle and essence in the natural order of all things. We must do this work to help co-create the balance that this planet desperately needs. In essence, it's the healing of the divine feminine. I mean, the planets are all aligned for it. Chiron just went into Aries. Uranus is in Taurus. And on top of that, Black Moon Lilith just came out of a very intense healing transit with Pluto in Capricorn. Ouch, that one hurt. But I think it was not bad energy, just a lot of intense energy. Note, each of these aspects I just mentioned is incredibly powerful. I encourage you to Google them and learn more. And if you're watching this video, you can find the name of these planets and aspects on my website under my blog, under the most recent blog post, The New Moon in Cancer. The divine feminine is in an intense healing phase in her journey of truly facing and feeling the wounds of the patriarchy. Women and the earth everywhere, women on the earth and women and the earth everywhere are grieving. It seems to be a time that for the first time in thousands of years, many women are finding the courage, the fire, the strength, and the wisdom to finally feel and express their pain, their disappointment, and their outrage. Let's just take a look at the volcano in Hawaii, the great goddess Pele. She has no shame about expressing what must be expressed, because to suppress it any longer will only prolong the suffering. The time for release has arrived. Sending new blessings, sending new moon blessings and new pathways of nurturing, expressing and receiving self-love, and wholesome ways of mothering ourselves and others. You can book your intuitive astrology breakthrough session on my website, themedicinelady.com. So that's just a quick overview of the blog post that I wrote to really try to summarize this new moon energy, this new moon in Cancer, with the moon conjunct the sun opposing Pluto. It's an unusual new moon in the sense that it's really connecting this moon with other feminine energies. Feminine meaning water energies. The moon is obviously a feminine energy, but on top of that, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and Scorpio is also very watery, watery and intense, and the moon being watery and nurturing. So it can be like a sea of emotions out there right now, and I think it's really important for us to remember that within and without, there's a lot of intense sensitivity right now. People are experiencing a level of vulnerability and a level of rawness that can be really intense, and it can make people a little overly sensitive, probably a little overly emotionally reactive. So it's just a time for all of us to be extremely gentle with ourselves and with each other, and to really treat each other as we'd like to be treated. I think it's also a time to be as still as possible, and when we feel something, to really sit with it and ask ourselves, is it true? Or is it just an old story that has been so ingrained in us that we think it's true until we sit down to really kind of examine this habitual way of feeling in response to a certain trigger. Is it serving us? Is it taking us energetically and emotionally in the direction that we want to go? And, oftentimes it's not. And that's why Pluto is opposing the moon and the sun in this case. The sun being more of our outward personality and the moon being our emotions, our unconscious. And it's a time where we can really transform very old, disempowering ways of connecting with our emotions. And powerful resets can occur right now because we do have eclipse energy. It may not be full eclipse energy, but it is eclipse energy. So we can really harness that energy to reset a lot of these old emotional dynamics and patterns that are no longer serving us. And that's, the highest vibration of eclipse season, is to release that which no longer serves us. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video because I want to keep it really concise. And I want to send all of you lots of blessings and love and abundance. And I will see you very soon. Peace, everybody.